Commander Zilak slammed his manipulator appendage on the emergency communication panel, his throat sacs inflating with barely controlled panic. Central Command, this is Academy Station Primus. We have a code violet in the Advanced Weapons Mastery Final Examination. Request immediate council intervention. The reply crackled back within seconds. Commander, code violet protocols are reserved for existential threats to Alliance security. Clarify. The human student bypassed our master forge entirely, Zilak said, his voice climbing an octave. She brought organic remains into the examination hall. She's making a weapon from a bone. 3 seconds of silence. Then, repeat that last statement. In Examination Hall 7, Instructor Kael'thas stood frozen 15 meters from his desk, his data slate hanging forgotten in his primary grip. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. 43 alien cadets worked at their assigned forge stations, plasma cutters humming, molecular aligners buzzing, each student carefully shaping their blades from the provided military-grade titanium ceramic composite. Standard procedure, established protocol. 40 years he taught this course, and every single student followed the same process, except Emma Johnson. The human sat cross-legged on the floor in the corner of her station, completely ignoring the 15,000 credits worth of forging equipment behind her. In her left hand, she held what appeared to be a femur, large, off-white, definitely organic. In her right hand, she held a rock, a simple, gray, unremarkable rock she'd apparently picked up from the Academy's ornamental garden outside. She was humming something, an earth tune, while scraping the rock against the bone in long, rhythmic strokes. Cadet Johnson, Kael'thas managed, his translator struggling with the tremor in his voice. The examination parameters were explicit. You are to forge a blade using the provided materials and equipment. Emma looked up, pausing mid-scrape. Right. Forge a blade. I'm doing that. That is a bone. Yeah, she grinned, holding it up to the light, examining the edge she'd been working. Femur, I think. Got it from the cafeteria. They were just going to throw it away after making stock. The cafeteria, Kael'thas repeated flatly. Waste not, want not. Emma returned to scraping, small flakes of bone material falling away with each stroke. You said we had to forge a blade suitable for military combat. You specified length, edge geometry, balance requirements, and penetration capacity. You never said anything about what materials or tools we had to use. Kael'thas felt his secondary brain beginning to override his primary. This was impossible. This was a protocol violation. This was, his communicator chirped. Commander Zilak's, voice tight. Do not interfere with the human. Weapons Master Vexthul is en route. Central Command has escalated this to the Galactic Weapons Council. Sir, she's using a rock and a bone. Surely we can simply... Instructor, 3 cycles ago, a human engineer fixed our quantum drive using what she called percussive maintenance. The drive now operates at 140% efficiency, and our entire physics department is having collective breakdowns trying to understand how. We are not assuming anything about human methods until we have expert analysis. Through the hall's transparent dome, Kael'thas could see 6 military shuttles approaching at combat speed. For a rock and a bone. Emma Johnson kept scraping, humming, occasionally rotating the bone to work a different section. She looked, Kael'thas thought with growing dread, remarkably like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Phase 2, Impossibility Escalation, 680 words, Weapons. Master Vexthul swept into the examination hall like a gravitational event, his ceremonial combat armor catching the overhead lighting. Behind him, 3 specialists carried enough scanning equipment to outfit a research station. 43 alien cadets immediately stopped working and stood at attention. Their human classmate glanced up, waved with her rock, and continued scraping. Cadet Johnson, Vexithul's voice carried the weight of 600 military campaigns. "You are in violation of examination protocols." "Am I, though?" Emma held up her bone, now noticeably shaped into a rough blade form. "Check your exact wording. I've got the parameters memorized. Forge a blade no less than 20 centimeters in length, suitable for military combat, demonstrating proper edge geometry and balance." Done, doing, and will be done. Nothing in there about materials or methodology. One of the specialists activated a molecular scanner, pointing it at Emma's work. His scales immediately flushed purple, the Kranich equivalent of choking. "Master Vexthul, the edge consistency, it shouldn't be possible. The material is organic calcium phosphate. It should be fracturing under the application pressure she's using." "It's called napping," Emma said cheerfully, now using the rock with quick, precise taps against the bone's edge. Tiny flakes broke away with each impact. Percussion flaking, technically. You hit the material at the right angle with the right force, and it fractures in a controlled way. Humans have been doing this for, 2 million years or so. Vexthul moved closer, his combat instincts warring with his scientific curiosity. 2 million years before your spaceflight. Before our writing system, before our agriculture, before our civilization. Emma grinned, that disturbing expression humans made when they found something funny. "We were making cutting tools when we were still arguing about whether fire was a good idea." The specialist's scanner emitted an alarmed chirp. "Sir, the molecular alignment at the developing edge, it's matching military-grade monomolecular specifications." "That's impossible," Kael'thas interjected. "Monomolecular edges require quantum alignment chambers and an understanding of how materials break," Emma interrupted, switching from percussion to using the rock's edge to press against the bone blade, removing smaller and smaller flakes. "Pressure flaking now. You can get crazy sharp if you know what you're doing. My great-grandfather made hunting knives. He taught my dad taught me. Seemed like practical knowledge." Vexthul activated his command channel. "Council, we have a situation. The human is producing military-grade edge specifications using pre-industrial techniques and refuse materials." "Define refuse materials," came the reply. "A bone from the station cafeteria and a rock from our decorative garden." 5 seconds of silence. "You're telling me a human is crafting a weapon from our garbage?" "Affirmative." Across the hall, a Zafrani cadet's plasma cutter overheated, the safety systems automatically shutting down his forge station. He stared at his partially completed blade, then at Emma, then back at his blade. His crest feathers drooped in what might have been existential despair. Emma switched techniques again, now rubbing the bone against a different section of her rock in long, smooth strokes. The grinding sound set Kael'thas's teeth on edge. "Abrading," she explained, noticing his attention. "For the final edge. Gets you that razor finish." The specialist's scanner was now emitting a continuous stream of alarmed chirps. "Master, I'm detecting edge sharpness exceeding 40% of our cadet's current work. Her blade is outperforming military-grade titanium ceramic composites, made from bone, using rocks." Vexthul's chest plates contracted, a physical sign of deep stress. He opened a priority channel that hadn't been used in 70 years. "This is Weapons Master Vexthul to Supreme Weapons Artificer R. Hill. We need you at Academy Station Primus immediately. We have a human problem." Emma looked up again, eyebrows raised. "Problem? I thought I was acing this exam." Phase 3. System breakdown, 720 words. Supreme Weapons Artificer R. Hill hadn't left his forge monastery in 12 years. He materialized in the examination hall like a walking military museum, his scales bearing the scars of 3 centuries of weapons mastery. Every cadet immediately prostrated themselves. Emma waved again. "So you're the human making my former students question their life choices," R. Hill said, his voice like grinding stone. "If it helps, I'm questioning my choice to take this course," Emma replied, now working on sharpening the bone blade's tip. Do you know how hard it is to find good napping stones in a space station? Everything's too processed. Rahil picked up a standard military combat knife from the testing bench. This blade can cut through 6 centimeters of standard armor plating. It requires 3 days of forging, molecular alignment, and quantum edge setting. He placed it on the testing block. Show me what you've made from cafeteria refuse. Emma stood, stretching. Humans, always stretched after sitting, and presented her bone blade. It was roughly 25 centimeters long, the edge catching the light in a way that made Kael'thas's combat training instinctively step back. The surface showed the rippled texture of countless tiny flake removals, giving it an almost organic, flowing appearance. Rahil took the bone blade with surprising gentleness. He ran one claw along the edge, testing. His scales shifted through 3 colors. Impossible. I get that a lot, Emma said. The artificer placed the bone blade against the armor sample, drew it across. The blade sliced through like the armor was paper. He tested it against 3 more samples of increasing density. The bone blade cut through all of them, the edge remaining intact. This violates material science principles, Vexthul whispered. No, Arhill said slowly. It violates our assumptions about material science. He looked at Emma. Explain your process. Every step. Emma shrugged. Okay, so first you need to understand the material's fracture mechanics. Bone is crystalline in structure. It breaks along predictable lines if you know what you're looking for. You select a piece with good density and minimal flaws. Then you use hard percussion, she mimed hitting with the rock, to remove large flakes and establish the basic shape. The angle of impact determines the flake morphology. 90 degrees gets you step fractures, less than that gets you long, thin removals. 3 specialists were frantically recording every word. After rough shaping, you switch to soft percussion or pressure flaking, another demonstration, to refine the edge and remove smaller flakes. This gives you control over the exact edge geometry. You're essentially removing material at the molecular level, but selectively, following the natural crystal structure. Finally, abrading for the finishing edge. The rock I found has silica content, works like sandpaper at the microscale. These are Stone Age techniques, one specialist breathed. Pre-industrial, pre-civilizational. Yeah, Emma nodded. Humans have been really, really good at making things that cut other things for about 2 million years. We've had a lot of practice. When we invented metallurgy, we just applied the same principles to new materials. When we developed advanced composites, same thing. The material changes, but the understanding of how to make an edge sharp enough to kill something, that's been with us since before we were technically human. Rahil sat down heavily, a gesture of shock from a being who'd stood through planetary sieges. You're telling me that every human has access to weapon crafting knowledge that predates interstellar civilization by millions of years? I mean, not everyone learns it, Emma said. But yeah, the knowledge is there. Humans have been in an arms race with each other for our entire evolutionary history. We learned to make every material into a weapon. Bone, stone, wood, bronze, iron, steel, titanium, polymers, whatever. If we found it, we figured out how to kill with it. Kael'thas felt something fundamental crack in his understanding of the universe. Our forging protocols, the advanced equipment, the specialized materials. Helpful, Emma said kindly. Really helpful. Makes things faster and more consistent. But required? No. Give a human literally anything, and they'll figure out how to make it sharp. Rahil stood, armor creaking. This examination is suspended. We need a full council session. He looked at Emma's bone blade again, sitting innocently on the testing bench, sharp enough to cut through military armor, made from garbage and Stone Age knowledge. Can I finish? Emma asked, and I'm like 90% done, and I've got cafeteria duty in 2 hours. Phase 4. Revelation and Resolution, 680 words. The Academy's Grand Council chamber had hosted treaty negotiations, war crime tribunals, and the graduation of 15,000 elite warriors. It had never hosted an emergency session about a student's craft project. 63 council members filled the tiered seating, with another 100 attending via holographic link. At the center of the floor, Emma Johnson's bone blade sat on a display pedestal under analysis lights. Chancellor Zelar called the session to order with visible effort. Artificer R. Hill, present your findings. Rahil rose and the chamber quieted instantly. Council, I have tested Cadet Johnson's weapon against every standard in our military specifications. Edge sharpness exceeds 42% of completed cadet weapons. Penetration capacity, superior to standard-issue combat knives in 3 categories. Structural integrity, despite being organic material, shows no degradation after stress testing. Balance and handling, within acceptable parameters for combat deployment. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. She crafted this using Stone Age techniques and refused materials from our station. No forges, no quantum aligners, no molecular synthesizers, just napping stones and an understanding of material fracture mechanics that humanity has refined for 2 million years. Surely this is an anomaly, a counselor objected. One human with specialized knowledge. It's not specialized knowledge, Emma interrupted, drawing scandalized looks for breaching protocol. Sorry, but it's not. It's basic human education. We teach kids about tool making in elementary school, field trips to archaeology sites. Most humans could probably figure out basic napping if you gave them an afternoon and some rocks. Some of us just kept learning because it was interesting. Chancellor Zelar's facial plates contracted. You're saying any human could do this? Well, not as well as I can. I've been practicing since I was 8, but make a functional cutting tool from whatever's available? Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of our thing. Emma paused. Actually, there are 3 other human cadets in this academy. Want me to call them? 20 minutes later, 4 humans stood before the council. Cadet Marcus Chen presented a knife he'd made from scrap metal he'd found in the recycling system, shaped using nothing but a maintenance grinder and patience. Cadet Sarah Jackson had crafted a spearhead from a broken ceramic panel and some polymer cord. Cadet James Rodriguez had apparently been making arrowheads from glass bottles in his spare time because it was relaxing. We had no idea, James said, genuinely confused by the fuss. You never said we couldn't. The rules just said we had to make weapons during the exam. We made weapons. The council sat in stunned silence. Weapons Master Vex Thul spoke quietly. Chancellor, I believe we need to reassess our understanding of human military capacity. Our doctrine assumes that technological superiority or material access determines combat effectiveness. Humans operate under different assumptions. They assume weaponization regardless of available technology or materials. They don't need supply chains, another counselor realized, horror dawning in their voice. Human forces could be dropped on a primitive world with nothing but rocks and bones, and they'd be armed and deadly within hours. Probably minutes, Emma corrected helpfully. Depends on what's available to work with. Chancellor Zelar looked at Emma's bone blade again. Cadet Johnson, by the technical parameters of the examination, you have fulfilled all requirements. You are awarded full marks. He paused. However, this council must now address a larger issue. Our entire weapons curriculum is based on the assumption that advanced materials and technology create superior weapons. You have demonstrated that this is merely one approach, not the only approach. Rahil stepped forward. I propose a new mandatory course, Primitive Weapons Mastery, taught by humans. Every cadet must learn to weaponize basic materials without advanced technology. If we are to train the Alliance's elite warriors, they must understand that the weapon is not the material, it's the knowledge of how to use that material. The vote was unanimous. Emma raised her hand. Quick question. Can I keep the bone? I was going to make soup stock with the leftovers. The council adjourned in existential confusion. Phase 5. New paradigm, 420 words. 3 weeks later, Examination Hall 7 had been converted into what the cadets nervously called the Primitive Skills Lab. Piles of stones in various compositions lined one wall. Bone samples filled preservation units. Wood, ceramics, glass, and various organic materials occupied stations around the room. Advanced scanning equipment monitored everything, as if the council still hoped to find some scientific explanation for why hitting rocks together produced military-grade weapons. Emma stood at the front, facing 60 alien cadets who looked at her with expressions ranging from fascination to existential dread. "Okay," she said, picking up 2 stones. "Today we're learning basic percussion flaking. By the end of this class, everyone will have made a functional cutting tool from rocks you pick up from the ground. No technology, no power, just your understanding of how materials break." A Zafrani cadet raised a tentacle. "What if we fail?" "Then you hit the rock more until you succeed. Our ancestors didn't have the option to give up. If they didn't make tools, they didn't eat. You've got it easier. You get lunch either way." Instructor Kael'thas stood at the back of the room, watching his students struggle with concepts that humans had mastered before developing language. His data slate showed updated military doctrine from Central Command. Directive 2847, Human Military Assessment Revision. Previous assumption, human effectiveness derived from technological advantage. Corrected assumption, human effectiveness derived from adaptive weaponization of any available materials, regardless of technological context. Strategic implication, human forces must be considered armed and dangerous in any environment, even when stripped of equipment and resources. Defense implication, restricting human access to advanced weapons technology does not meaningfully reduce threat capacity. In the corner, Marcus Chen was teaching a small group how to pressure flake glass. Sarah Jackson demonstrated spear hafting using polymer cord and salvaged materials. James Rodriguez had somehow acquired clay and was explaining ceramic blade production. Emma moved between stations, offering corrections and encouragement in equal measure. She stopped by a struggling Kranich cadet, gently adjusted his grip angle, and watched with satisfaction as he successfully removed a proper flake. "Hey," she said to Kael'thas as she passed, "is anyone using the leftover bone from my exam blade? Because I'm making stew tonight and could really use the stock." Kael'thas looked at his data slate, at the galaxy-spanning military doctrine revisions, at the fundamental reassessment of human capability happening at every level of Alliance command. Then at the human asking about soup ingredients. "The bone is yours, Cadet Johnson." "Awesome," Emma grinned. "Waste not, want not." She headed toward the door, calling back. "Oh, and next semester, I'm thinking about making a spear for polearms class. You got any scrap metal I could use?" The door closed behind her, leaving Kael'thas wondering what other assumptions about reality would shatter before graduation. He quietly began removing equipment restrictions from next year's curriculum, just in case.